For those just starting out elk hunting, it can all be so overwhelming. Add in all the hype and advertisements and social media, and it's so easy to get caught up, confused, or have to spend years trying to wade through it all. On today's show, we're joined at elk camp by the one and only Guy Duplantier of the Western Contours podcast, adding his unique perspective as we talk about how those new to elk hunting can avoid getting overwhelmed or falling victim or even becoming misinformed. We also have a very honest discussion about defining success. Whoo, buddy, y'all put your boots on because it's gonna get deep. That discussion with some ElkBros shout outs and great questions from our ElkBros mailbox. So my friends, pull up a chair, adjust your volumes just right, and welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunting, brought to you by ElkBros.com, with your host Gilbert Ornelas and elk hunting coach Joe Giglia. You want to hunt elk, and they live to hunt elk. Their goal is to share with you what they have learned grinding it out for over 35 seasons, doing what they love. So come on into camp and set a spell. Welcome to Blue Collar Elk Hunters.
How's it going there, Elk Bros? This is Tim Cordova coming to you straight from the job site. A true blue-collar elk hunter here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, home of Pikes Peak, America's mountain. Also home to all those damn elusive elk that keep getting away from me every year. But I'll tell you what, this year, with the help of the Elk Bros, they're in trouble. See you in them woods, boys.
Wow. Thank you, Tim. Way to kick off our show there, buddy. Hello there, everyone. If it's your first time with us, glad to have you. Hope you enjoy our show. And as always, for those blue collar hunters following our show and grinding it out with us every week, welcome back to Elk Camp. I'm Gilbert Ornelas, your host of your show, and as usual, all the bros are in the house. The Venezuelan Mafia is in the house. Luis Gonzalez and Manano Grateron, and your elk hunting coaches. That's right, we got the Leroy Chavez in the house, and Joe Giglia out of Cimarron, New Mexico. And tonight, pulling up a chair and joining us here at Elk Camp, he's that voice, the Mac Daddy of the mic, with the raspy deep voice of a monarch herd bull, the man behind the voice of the incredible Western Contours podcast, the gear junkie, archery / hunter extraordinaire, and promoter of the hunter lifestyle, our friend and brother, Mr. Guy Duplantier.
What's happening, boys?
Welcome, Roy.
How we doing, gents? I appreciate the time, man. This is awesome.
Man, so cool to have you, brother.
I'm not watching or listening. I'm sitting right here live with you guys, man.
Elk Camp.
Heck yeah, man. This is awesome.
Yeah. Joined in the circle, man. Guy, it's so funny. I mean, you say you're not watching or listening. I was just listening to you, on a 2-hour drive earlier today.
That's awesome, man.
And you don't know this, but when we started this whole podcast thing, had no idea when we first came into this. I think it's a little over 2 years now that we started this podcast. And so I was like, I'm going to go out and listen to some of these podcasts and find out, what this is like, and start looking for those people that are really doing it and find out what the formulas are for success. Because I'm one of those people that if you want to be good at something, you find people that are good at it, man, and learn, follow, listen, those things.
Yeah, that's why Manano sticks with me all the time.
Oh, yeah.
You started already, Guy.
Already.
I love it.
And the very first podcast that I listened to, and the one that I targeted, was this podcast called Western Contours.
Oh, man, no way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you started that podcast not too much longer before we did. I'm not sure, but
yeah,
man, as soon as I heard the voice.
Yeah.
Did I swoon you?
Your podcast going?
I started recording the end of 2018, dropped the first episode January 1st, 2019. So I'm in my third year. And what
inspired you to do it?
Man, just wanting to hear the everyday stories, right?
Yeah.
The Gilbert Ornelases, the Chavs, VM guys. I wanted to hear the everyday stories. I love hearing like those, the big names, the big league hitters, if you will.
Sure.
But you miss something with that, right? And it was just like, how do I do this? How do I get those stories that you get around the campfire at the archery shop as a average Joe Blow guy that doesn't have access?
Touched a nerve, didn't you, Joe?
Poked the bear.
Found the hot button guy.
Truth hurts or something there. I don't know. So I mean, that's all right, man. That was really what spurred it. And man, just, you go to the archery shop or somewhere, you're at the range and you start talking, you stand there for 3 hours and you shot 2 arrows because you're just sitting there shooting the S about hunting, man. And
sure.
I don't know that it gets better than that, and then you start meeting people and the values in the hunting community. Mm-hmm. It's almost overwhelming, right? All the good that hunting does and the lifestyle. So, I mean, that's, my long-winded version of what you probably were looking for in a nutshell.
No, and I love that answer. I mean, Joe and I, hunting is our passion. Elk hunting especially is our passion. And Joe Joe's an incredible coach. I've had him as my coach for a long time, him and Chad. But as a profession, that's what they did. They were, track coaches and teachers of people. And I've always wanted to make a living doing what I love because it would never feel like a job,
Mm-hmm.
And Joe and I talked a couple years back, and we're like, Joe's like, what do you think about doing a podcast? And I'm like, Joe, they pay me to talk. I could talk leg off a wooden Indian, So absolutely, brother. I mean, you want to do a podcast? Okay, cool. I got no problem acting a fool or, having fun. I mean, this is something that's fun for us. Mm-hmm. And we get to talk to guys like you and, all of the hunting community is kind of, man, we're small potatoes, man. Like you said, we're no major league hitters. We're no Mike Waddell, Bill Jordan. I mean, we're none of those guys, but at the end of the day, we're passionate about what we do, just like those guys are, and those guys have paved the way for guys like us to do what we're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're just bringing blue collar guys into the middle of this deal and trying to help them get started. Because look, man, our sport's expensive. It costs a lot of money to do what we do, and some guys, are come from real meager means and stuff, and we try to help them get things started off.
Yeah, that barrier of entry is one of the things that I think you guys hit really well on, right? Is just that the blue collar aspect of it, and that's kind of what draws me to being a fan of the podcast and you guys.
Appreciate it, guy.
It's
huge fans of yours. I can't thank you enough for having all of us be able to give you a little bit of piece of us, and you showcase it on your podcast, bro.
Oh man, the reflection series is unbelievable. I mean, I think it's a genius idea to kind of
rocking, man. It's rocking
exactly, and it just to kind of pick the brains of all the people out there, just kind of their perspective on mindset and I think it's wonderful. So I think we all benefit from it. So again, as Gilbert said, we're just more than honored to kind of be part of it. So thank you for having us help with that.
And I was honored to have you guys.
That's what's so great about this community is that bottom line, we all got to go up that mountain the same way. We're all going to sweat when we do it, and we're all going to have those verolaques or different things that are happening. And I want you to know, Manano, man, Guy is a verolaques extraordinaire. I mean, he's got the formula for that, right, Guy?
So he got the voice at least. He's the man. He's the man.
You guys, I'm gonna have to take this hat off. You keep blowing me up.
I think a cool thing is Gilbert. Here you host a podcast. We got Gilbert host a podcast. Gilbert, man, is a personality that no matter where he goes, man, he's always this personality, man. He's that guy. He's that guy that you just love to listen to his stories and sound effects. But here you do a podcast, and from what I understand, socially, you're not the same way.
No, Okay, so I mean, my wife has issue with this, but if you look at where I'm at, right, and and you look at what I'm surrounded by here in California, right, it for me to really be social or interact, I always feel like you need to have some kind of commonality, right? If you're going to make that connection, you need commonality, and it's hard. It's hard for me to relate because my views are so much different than a lot of these people. It doesn't mean I'm not cordial or, you know, present myself in a nice way, but I don't vibe with some of that. And, you know, a lot of times if you start talking hunting or, you know, it's just, you're like left field to these folks.
Yeah.
Right. So after a while,
you feel like a round peg in a square hole.
No, I'm a round peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So that's what's caused me that, I'm going to say caused me that distance, because I don't feel like that there's a connection. Now you get me talking to you guys, and there's
I was going to say, how did you feel talking to us before the show?
Oh, man, we have that commonality. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We have something in common. We have, you know, maybe we didn't put boots on the same path, but we have that shared struggle. And there's a lot in just that struggle, right? That as soon as we look at each other and we start talking, you know what's going on in that guy's head, you know. So
we have a similar situation in our community for Latin people, especially in Venezuela. We don't have any hunting culture, and personally, I don't post on my personal account any hunt, because 99% of my followers are from Venezuela. They don't have that hunting culture. So if I post something with a little bit of blood or a trophy, they're gonna go back and eat me alive.
I think that's a huge mistake, man. I think that's almost like a closet hunter, man, because you don't have that chance to open those discussions. And some of those people don't want to hear the discussion, right? Yeah. But at the same time, anytime you get the opportunity to educate, I don't think you should be hiding your passion.
No,
because of other people.
We don't actually. We're doing it.
What Manano's saying.
We're doing it in
cultural difference.
Yeah, we're doing it in our older account.
So one of the reasons why I started with my account being called Only Hunters, it was because of that. Yeah. I started posting my hunting stuff in my account, and immediately it's just like, oh my God, how can you possibly do something like that? And blah, blah, blah. And then I was all about what you're saying. I was trying to educate and all this stuff, but I just grew tired of it. Yeah, so I created a new account called Only Hunters, which then it became VM Hunters and stuff like that.
It's absolutely hard. I hear you. And like I said, there's going to be a bunch of them that no matter what, they're going to get it.
Exactly.
But if you can affect one person.
Oh, and I still do it. Don't get me wrong. So what I do is with the VM Hunters account, we repost a lot of the stuff in our personal accounts. And the people that is interested, they would actually, write a message and ask, it's like, look, I understand I like meat, but, how come you hunt like this way? And then I just, when they open the door for that discussion, is like, look, I understand and completely respect your point of view, but here's my point of view, and here's what I know about the hunting that you may not know.
Then you have an opportunity to educate.
Then you have an opportunity to have those conversations. But I'm just trying to avoid the extremists.
You're
not going to avoid them. They troll us like crazy.
For Venezuelans, there's no valid argument to support the hunt. I mean, in the U.S., the hunting community, it's $86 billion a year. So that's an argument. And you can go, elk population went from this little bit to that big amount of elk in the mountain from 90s to 2000. So because of the conservation and because of the hunters, so we don't have that kind of support in Venezuela.
How do you handle that guy in your crowd, man? I mean, like you said, you're in that environment. So how do you handle that?
For me, it's a deeper conversation, right? And it's not like, hey, you got 5 minutes. It's, do you have 20 or 30 minutes, right? And, you know, and I've said it for a long time, even on my platform, you know, as hunters, we have a weak argument because we don't want to have to explain everything, right? And then I think to a point, and excuse me, folks listening, is that we're not fully educated on it ourselves, right? Because the conversation should be about biodiversity and conservation and sustainable landscapes, right? And when we start talking along that line, people are more likely to listen, but it's a long-winded conversation. So some people, you lose them, but that's the step we have to take. And if you lose them, you lose them. They're going to walk away and remember 5 or 6 things out of 20 that you said, but at least the wheels are turning, because it's easy for somebody to get on and the thumbs start moving and they start Googling. And then that's when the light bulb comes up. If we provide them things like that, right? Well, what's biodiversity? And they start looking at that. I think that's where those conversations need to be had.
You know,
Very well said.
I think one of the reasons that we're not as educated about it is because I really think to a point that being a hunter is something that is built into the DNA of us. You know, it's something that comes from deep inside, man, that thirst for being out there, for becoming
talks
part
about
of
it in the Bible.
And
I see it in my daughters, man.
Yeah.
I mean, girls that never shot a gun, never shot a crossbow, and all of a sudden, you know, you put them in a situation like that and they pull the trigger and they get vito lacus and they get that heartbeat going, and it's just like you don't learn that.
No, and look, then they've partaken in something that they're a part of, and now they have harvested food for their own family. Look, and you know, as we evolved as people from the Adam and Eve days, man, God gave us the animals and to be over them in all domains for our use, to eat and to have for working purposes and everything. And, you know, to have a conversation like that, like Guy said, it's deep, because these people want to troll you and box you into a corner and make you seem to be some evil person. I've never killed an animal with malice in my heart, you know. Not one time, you know, I've never harvested an animal with any malice in my heart, you know. As a matter of fact, man, we pray over our animals when we're done, you know.
Yeah,
we give thanks to God and creation for them.
That's going to come in here. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show, because we got a terrific question out here. So, Gilbert, let's start rocking this, man.
Absolutely, man. Well, guys, y'all know what time it is. It's time for the ElkBros shout-outs. If you're new to our show, this is just a shout-out to a few cities with the most listeners topping our charts this week.
Yeah, right away, we're going to thank, man, our brother Tim Cordova of Colorado Springs, who kicked off the show, man. And, guys, I don't know if you remember this or not, but Tim's no stranger to the ElkBros. He actually, his question that he sent in actually inspired one of our past episodes. It was the one, if you're not hunting cow elk, you should be.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, he was the one that inspired his question. And listen, grinders, you too can send a 15 or 20-second shout-out video through a message either on our ElkBros Instagram or email. You can email me at joe@elkbros.com that you have a clip, and I'll make sure that we get that video. We'd love to have you. And, you know, we're going to do a little bit of change here tonight. Since we have a guest in camp tonight, and to honor his time with us, we are only going to shout out to this week's top listening city and then include the rest of those next week when we get there. But, guys, as our guest tonight at Elk Camp, we would love for you to start us off with a shout out to your hometown, bud.
All right, man. Known for its tree-lined cities and green canopies, and is a post-World War II planned community where veterans from World War II could get a home loan with no down payment and a 30-year mortgage at 40% interest. About 150 miles of streets and 300 miles of sidewalk, and more than 36,000 tree-lined city streets and shade cities parks. Known as Tree City, USA, Lakewood, California.
Lakewood.
Yeah.
Lakewood.
What part of Cali is that, guys?
So it's in Southern California, so I'm bordering Orange County, and I'm just north of Long Beach.
So my sister lives in La Habra, or San Diego, La Habra, that area between San Diego and, golly, I'm trying to remember the town. And then, you know, I've got a ton of my family from Malibu. One side of my family is all in the music business. So
there you go.
One thing you're going to find out about Gilbert, man, if if there's a city he's had to,
he got somebody over there.
Yeah, from LA to Knoxville, baby.
All right, Cabez, let's know the top listening city.
Okay, this week's top listening city is a 400-year-old port city, home to comedian Bob Saget, and the world's largest naval base and the North American headquarters for NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. USA Today calls this city one of the top 10 booming downtowns and is called the Mermaid City, and is the birthplace of our own comedian, Joe Giglia.
What?
And that's Norfolk, Virginia.
Norfolk, Virginia. Yeah!
Norfolk, Virginia in the house.
Hey, Joe, did you consider yourself a comedian, bro?
So my grandfather, who was from Italy, didn't speak much English, right? But he always, I think,
I like Manano.
He kind of, a lot like Manano, he kind of made on like he didn't understand English, and he'd walk around and people would say stuff to him, and he was like, I don't get it, I don't understand, right? And one time my mom came down and snuck around the corner, and there was my grandpa sitting with me, and he was just talking to me as plain as day in English, man. But he used to have a name for me when I was a baby that in Italian was the little comedian. So he thought it was pretty funny.
What was that name?
I don't know, dude. I was like knee high to a grasshopper, but so yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
Norfolk. My niece lives in Norfolk,
Virginia, man. Norfolk, Virginia, man. That's so cool to have them top listening, guys. So
Colocomico.
Yeah, appreciate y'all, man. So, guys, we're gonna rock into this because we have Guy with us tonight, and Guy, we're coming to you, and you are going to be our lead off on these, and we're going to kind of pick your brain, have some conversation, and like we told everybody, this might get a little bit deep tonight, but it's going to be honest, man, and that's the thing that I think isn't done enough. I think there's a lot of questions in people's minds out there because they just don't know if that's something that they can trust, man, and they hear all these different things from everywhere, but so many people new to elk hunting, when they come in, it's just like, holy Toledo, man. It's just so much out there. I don't, what you're hit with in social media, what you're hit with from the marketing out there, what you're hit with from different programs. And, you go and you watch the different TV shows that give you this whole different picture. And I'll tell you, I had a friend of mine that I wanted him to come and film one of my hunts. And he had never been elk hunting before. So I gave him a video disc of a hunt. It was probably like a Primos or something like that back in the day, right? Gave it to him. He watched it and he came back. He's like, oh, piece of cake, man. So we go to the edge of a meadow. We set up a camera. You call, they come in, you shoot it, and we're done.
Done, dude.
So, Guy, let me put it.
Was that easy?
Let me put it to you, Guy, man. How can these people avoid getting overwhelmed or falling victim or becoming misinformed by all of those things out there and all that propagated hype? Or if you don't think it's hype, maybe it's not.
Man, so I have a couple feelings on it, right? Excuse me, because I gotta watch my mouth and everything. So in terms, you gotta know what kind of hunter you are first, right? Let me take this hat off. You gotta know what kind of hunter you are. And if you understand what kind of hunter you are, then you can kind of go in the direction of what you think suits you best, right? And that's a hard thing to say, I'm this kind of hunter, especially if you're green, right? If you're a guy that's never chased anything, to me, it's trial and error. You can watch all you want to watch, but it's going to be boots on the ground experience that's going to suit you the best. And I don't care what you consume. In terms of the flood of information, if you're trying to decipher and get through that stuff, I would say stay away from I don't want to say branded stuff, but if it's because you like a Matthews bow, or you like this call company, or you like this boot company, not to say that it's bad content or bad information, but don't make that the reason that you are watching that. And then secondly, don't make that the reason that that's the only thing that you're consuming, right? Because with all the information out there, you don't even, if you don't know what type of hunter you are, you can go and get all the bits and pieces and put them together to build that repertoire.
Yeah, I think he's 100% right on the money, Joe. First of all, you got to find out, when you're starting out, what kind of hunter you are, and what you're looking for in a hunt, which leads us into, some other questions like, where could you go wrong doing that? Yeah. All of that information can be very overwhelming. But I will tell you something that I would do. Not no shameless plug either, but I definitely listen to Western Contours and the ElkBros podcast, because that dang sure gets you straight on the right path. Right? I mean, from episode 1. What do you say, Luis?
No, I mean, and I'm just kind of thinking how my journey began, right? And I got a couple of general thoughts here. The first one is, look, if this is something that you think you're passionate about and something you got a strong interest on, go ahead and get started. I mean, just go ahead and jump in and start digging into the information there is out there. Yes, I do agree there is a lot of information out there, but I think having a mentor, having a couple people that it's already doing it goes a long ways, because then you have that one-on-one. You have that person that can guide you to where, where information is at and what kind of things you can look upon. See, I was completely led the wrong direction when I started joining Manano and his hunts.
Thank you,
So, I mean, I had to turn around and look at Beto and say, Beto, please, man. I mean, I'm just going completely the wrong direction here. I need some serious guidance. So Beto was like there to kind of support me and tell me, no, look, Manano is completely wrong. He's a nice dude, but I mean,
I saved your life, man. I saved your life. You were hunting with a shotgun.
But in reality, I think, one, just go ahead and get started. Have the courage to go ahead and step in. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make wrong choices, but that's going to teach you. But at the same time, if you have somebody else in the way.
Yeah, but what mistakes do you think they're going to make, man? Because I mean, I got people that write me letters and they're like, I've got to drop like $7,000 to get into this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one mistake right there.
Yeah. No, you don't have to, but what do you want? Can you afford a $7,000 hunt? Because I can tell you.
Well, I'm not talking about the hunt, bro. I'm not talking about the hunt. I'm talking about
the gear.
I'm talking about just to get the stuff to be able to get out in the woods, man. They're like,
no, you don't have to spend $7,000.
Guy, what do you think, man?
On the money, I mean, when I decide, I mean, it's, again, what kind of hunter are you? You want to be that guy that's, touting all those fancy brands, or do you want to be, the Joe Blow with the new Hoyt behind him? That's
that was slick, guys. That was slick, dude.
That is running the equipment that has suited his purpose for X amount of years. I mean, it's really a choice. When I started, man, my first bow came off of eBay at $150 from some dude in Virginia somewhere. And man, that's how I rolled, and it was, BDUs, and it was low budget. I didn't have the means. So if you want to be out there, you're going to find the means to be out there, but you gotta stop getting slapped in the face with all the hype and mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, you can. I mean, and you can do this low budget for sure.
Absolutely.
So start out with low budget, and then just understand whether or not this is really a passion for you and something that you want to continue to do. And then at that point, then you start reevaluating your budget, and then understanding how much you really want to invest on this, because it's not only an investment of money, it's also an investment of time.
For sure.
And is this money and time really paying out as far as how much you love this and how much passionate how passionate you are about this. And so, but it's just a kind of baby steps, work your way into it and then let it unfold as you think is really going to unfold for you.
But most people associate, when you say low budget, right? Most people associate that with like, second class, third class, like, how am I going to be successful? And again, I think this is one of those things out there, reality versus social media, or all the marketing that happens out there is like,
Agree.
How much the success supposed to cost, man? I mean,
but when a guy makes a great point, what demographic are you from? What socioeconomic background do you come from? At the end of the day, a guy that's a doctor and who's flush with cash, it really doesn't matter what he spends, right? But a guy who's our working class guy, who's a 9-to-5 dude who put or a 9-to-9 guy who's a shift worker who's making a good living, but it's different for them, right? You got a guy making $55,000 a year versus a guy making $450,000 a year. It's just different on how they're going to set things up. Yeah. You can get caught up in the hype, and maybe that socioeconomic structure is going to lead you into being caught up in that hype. Or if you're a frugal guy, like a lot of us are, we would dive in and try to do some research on what guys have been killing elk with. Do I need a brand new VX3 or a Hoyt Raptor or whatever that's out there? It's brand new, or could I go get me? Like the guy said, I could look up on eBay and buy me a Matthews Switchback for $450, and that bow's 12, 13 years old. But I promise you, it will slay dragons, brother, when you put the right equipment with it, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really in what you figure out where you want to go, and then once you do, you dive in, like Luis said, find a mentor, whether it be at your bow shop or a guy that you hunt with. I mean, hunting out west ain't easy. Everybody reads the information. This is the information age, man. You can Google just about anything, so when they dive in and find out 5 to 10% of people in these areas are only successful versus 20 or 30,000 people hunting, that's a big deal. So that hits you in the face like a crappy mouth.
Yeah. And I think one of the things you're mentioning there, it's actually a perfect segue to potentially our next discussion, is because, okay, so you're talking about equipment and stuff like that could potentially increase your success,
right?
In the hunt. But then at that point, when you're at that point into where, okay, what is my success in the hunt? Am I out there just having connection with nature and enjoying the ride? And
all right. You're getting ready to get me going, man, right here, man, because I'm like, because this is where I really, really struggle. And this is where,
exactly,
man, y'all had better chime in on this, because
absolutely. What is success?
Yeah, what is success? Because,
well, I think it's different for every one of us.
Absolutely.
I think you have to define that yourself, Joe. I think you got to be honest with what expectations there are. You got to do your homework and manage those expectations. For me, man, you hunted with me for the first 5 years of my career, and it really was not about killing a elk. Plenty of opportunities to do so, right? Drove my guides absolutely crazy. It was about killing the elk. And by the way, he's right above me right here. You can see him right up here in this little.
The crazy eye.
Looking down at you.
I
got that eye right?
You see that eye right there? Boy? That's my wife, man. She loves to put old crazy eye on display. So at the end of the day, man, it was about killing the elk, all right? And I was okay going home with tag soup. It was going to be just fine with me. I learned every time I went in the woods. Now, for another guy, it may mean that he needs to harvest an animal for him to be.
But you just said something, man. You said you went home with tag soup. That tag soup syndrome right there. As soon as somebody says, I ate tag soup, what are they actually saying? Because Guy, I've heard this conversation happen a lot, man, with you, the experience versus the pursuit, killing versus hunting, man, right? So what's your viewpoint on that?
It's again, knowing the hunter you are. It goes back to that, right? Because you are going to ultimately define your success, right? And for me, I have this, and I'm not like patting, it might be stupid, but for me, it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back, but I have a leap before I look mentality. Like, I'm just going to go. I don't care. I'm just going. And sometimes I'll define my day in the woods or my day on the mountain by my ability just to go. Yeah. And it's really a personal experience. That's the beauty, one of the beauties of hunting, right? And then peeling back to what I was saying before, you got to get away from someone else determining what your level of success is on the mountain. I mean, it's yours. It's your experience. It's yours to create whatever opportunity you have. It's yours 110%. If you realize
that evolves every time you're on the mountain.
Absolutely. And if you realize that every time you walk in the woods, you never have a bad day, a disappointing day on the mountain, even with a missed shot, right? Those days become learning lessons and experiences that you're going to look at and you're going to capitalize on the next time you're on the mountain.
Yeah.
Not easy though.
I agree.
Not easy to be, to have that so clear in your head.
When you're starting out, I think that's why it's so important to manage expectations going forward.
I think it's like the problem I have is it's kind of like everybody. It's got to be black and white, and it's not black and white, man.
Negative,
I mean,
that's right.
I think a hunt is made up of a lot of different goals and a lot of different successes and failures throughout that hunt. All I'm saying is, can you be unsuccessful in the hunt and have successful things happen? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely you can. But, when it's kind of like this, here we're on a podcast and Guy does a podcast, right? And, you have TV shows and everything like that. When the hunting community and each of us here considers a hunter successful, right? When we consider a hunter successful, what does that resume look like, man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw the eyes get real big over there.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, you're talking about being able to seal the deal.
Yeah. So, Guy, what do you think, man? I saw the eyes get big.
Yeah, that's. All right, we sit at the top of this. It's going to be open and honest.
Yeah.
I think it's horse ass. Because you're watching a highlight reel, essentially, right? And we kind of touched on that earlier with with giving the guy the DVD. You're watching a highlight reel, and that is not the definition of success. The definition of success, in my opinion, when it comes to hunting, is getting out what you put in, right? And I have no problem with how anybody hunts as long as it's responsible and ethical and more power to you, right? If you figured out the magic of being able to brand it and have that content that people are drawn to, but that is not the measure of success.
But here's a question for you. Here's a question for you, though. If you got two guys that are both responsible and ethical, but you got one guy that is able to seal the deal every time and other one that is not able to seal the deal every time, then how do you measure success between the two? To you, in your mind, understanding that, who is the better hunter?
Well, it really doesn't matter because now you're talking about the party's opinion.
No,
it only matters to the person that's hunting.
Well, no, and I understand what Luis is saying, though, right? Because if you look at that, I have my buddy, I'm not going to even BS it, all right, Drew. Yeah. The poor guy can't steal the deal. We're in the elk woods, and he's got a elk 80 yards away. He creeps in 30, and he's like, I don't see the damn thing, right? Shoots at I don't know how many turkey with a turkey tag in his pocket, can't steal the deal. And sometimes for me, it's frustrating, right? Because it's like you want him to arrow something, right? But at the same time, as I watch him grow and understanding the process and the struggle, I can't not equate that to success, right? And then it's going to be all the much better when he arrows that, right? Then you're like, damn it, right? And then
on this podcast right now, I watched like that for 3 years.
Right. And then when that comes, right, you know that all that's going to come together in his head, right? All those failures are going to come. Man, that is the buildup, right? When I started this.
And it's the journey, right?
Yeah.
The journey.
When I started hunting, man, I think I went 4 years. I think it was 4 years before I killed a deer. Right. And I was out and out, right? Couldn't figure it out. Like what? I didn't even see an animal for 3 years. I finally got on an animal, man, and it was like the greatest thing. Right. So understanding that part of the journey, it's a big deal. And I think, if you look at it in terms of the struggle and the respect of the struggle, right? The game, if you will, that is where that success is defined. And I think the more people start to show the hardships of hunting in those films, the more likely we are to come together and people go, wow, that is the business right there. That is it.
You're 100% right, guy. There
I love this.
room for Hollywood in the hunting world, no doubt, right? And like you said, most of the time we see the highlight reels, all the kumbaya high-fiving and walking up on animals and this, that, and the other. But we also want to see the struggle too, because without any of those successes, didn't come struggle. I promise you. Even with the major league guys, we want to see that struggle, Yep. And for me, we walk through that struggle every day. We're do-it-yourself guys, and we hunt public land. I mean, we're not on private ranches and stuff like that. I mean, I've had the opportunity and many times to be able to hunt on a private ranch. It is a different world,
Does that come because of maturity and age? I mean, because I know a lot of people, man, love football, but they'd rather watch the highlight reel than watch the whole freaking game, right? So, sometimes I just think, and that's what we're
personal preference.
Yeah, because we get it. We get
success
it.
settles.
The journey part. We get that, man. But I think that comes with perspective and maturity, and it comes with the struggle of understanding that. There's some people, man, that you can go on YouTube right now, and you can find some of those where they just show, the day to day. And some people are like, well, I don't want to watch people walking through the woods. I want to watch what's happening when something's up on and they're getting
the action.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying. Right.
Certainly. And that goes back to the point of what you were saying earlier today, as far as the flood of information out there. I mean, what people are seeing are the success stories, and then
so then they feel like a failure when it doesn't happen.
Exactly. They're harder on themselves because they only see the success in the other end. I mean, Manano and I, we spend
it's apples and oranges they're comparing.
Absolutely. And Manano and I, we spend years in trying to understand where to shoot these hogs, man. Right. And it was a series of failure after failure, and just kind of mind-boggling. I was like, how are we going to hunt these animals? And then it took mentoring, it took researching, it took patience, understanding, and and it's become easier and easier nowadays. So yes, I mean, do we consider ourselves successful hog hunters nowadays? I would say we do, but it's not what we do now. It's what we were willing to do and what we did that got us here. And so that's what the journey, and that's what people need to understand. But most importantly, I want to, and I'm sorry, Joe, but I haven't heard Chav. And
I was going to just say,
man, I know Chav's, wheels are turning there, and I so want to hear his opinion on all of this.
Doggone, you guys woke me up.
I told you we could talk a leg off of wood, and Indian the ninjas going to speak. Like E.F. Hutton, y'all better listen.
For me, it's been an evolution. It took me a couple of years before I killed an elk, and I figured that every time I went out, I'd have at least one opportunity during a 7-day hunt, and that always occurred. And it took a while before I was able to close the deal. And as far as the success, to me now, of course, it's a totally different evolution because now just getting out there is going to be success for me. But I'd say during all those years, every time I get out there, you learn something new. And what I really like about bow hunting, it's a different. You get to see stuff that nobody else does. You know, even rifle hunters, you know, they got their scopes, spotting scopes, and their binos. They miss a lot. You know, they miss the little things around them, and it's always a learning process. It's always a learning experience every single time you go out there. And if you can just kind of think back to what occurred, you know, what went right, what went wrong, and correct your wrongs as you go. So to me, success is really the journey. You know, I love to eat elk meat. Don't get me wrong, but I know there's going to be sometimes just not going to happen. Percentages aren't there, and I don't have an atomic bow like probably all 5 of you guys. You know, I'll shoot that 60, 55 pound bow. So my shot's got to be right there. You know, got to be in the spot. And you know, I've lost some, and I've you know, harvested quite a few, probably more than the average person. But success is just getting out there and having a great time with people that you enjoy hunting with.
Yep.
And
Well
see,
said.
and look, I'm just going to tell you, man, it's just straight up. And it's changed a little bit. Like this year was probably one of the first years, and I think, see, early on,
Joe, how would you feel? How would you feel coming back home with a tack suit?
Oh,
Would you consider that a
drive me
success?
friggin' nuts, man. I mean, it just would, man.
Y'all got to understand, Joe's just a little different animal. You know,
I mean, it's
I'm
again,
telling
it's
you,
it's
he's got a
success.
tag in his pocket and he's got a bow.
I
in
mean,
his
you
hand.
got the two sides of the coin here. I mean, you got you both are measuring success slightly different.
No, but and you know, the
Joe's
thing
the
is
ultimate
look,
competitor.
early on in my career, I and up to a certain point, I'd say I was a very selfish hunter. In that, man, I'm going to go after an animal.
Yeah, me too.
If you're not going to get on it, you better get on my way because I'm going to get in there and I want to take the kill. And you know, I mean, honestly, God, I got tunnel vision. You can ask Chav, man. I mean, it's like you better get on it because I tell you what, I'm like that friggin' cougar, man. I get locked in and I want to go over there and just finish that deal on that. But at the same time, I took, and here's the weird part about it was as I started doing that and I started getting that down, I took more pleasure out of him getting an animal than I did myself. However, I had to do it, man. I mean, yeah, I got more. For me, it was almost like business. Mm-hmm. You know, it was like this. I mean, it's like I'm going to eat, I'm going to kill, right? Yeah, yeah. And seeing him do it was like, man, that was my heart thumper. And it's like this year was the first year, and you know, now that I work with you guys and I'm trying to ensure that you guys are getting animals, there's times when I'm like, look, if it happens for me, it happens. I've almost like put it in the back seat, right? And it's like I want to put everybody else out front. But then you saw what happened this time, man.
Yeah, but it was a perfect scenario for it to happen. We talked about that. You know, we had a great conversation about how this needed to go down, especially if we got in a herd and it split. You know, we all wanted, everybody in that camp wanted Joe to kill an elk because we knew that was all our goals to really give it back to Chav.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Our guy that has pushed us and coached us. I mean, I was more upset with myself because I didn't kill that elk that day when my peep sight failed me, because now I got to call. I got to send Chav a text and go, man, I whiffed today. You know, that was horrible. Not to mention I got my mentor over by.
He was going to go, what the heck, man?
Yeah, not to mention I got my mentor looking over my shoulder going, boys, I put that thing in your lap. What's up, fellas? You know, I could have killed him with a dadgum ball peen hammer, you know? And so, yeah, I get it, Joe. You yourself, Joe is the ultimate competitor when it comes into the harvesting of elk.
I think it's that competitive nature, man.
It really is, Joe. I see it all over you, and it's part of what we do as competitors, sports we played, stuff like that.
Have you watched any of Guy's posts, man? Have you seen what kind of competitor this dude is with him?
For sure, absolutely. He's just talking about his boy right now. He just outed his boy Drew. He's like, man, I don't know what I can do for that hand, I done put him in the middle of them, and he's shooting turkeys and everything.
But I think Guy's point about defining what kind of hunter you are taps into what we're just talking about, because success is going to be defined based on
you
realizing what kind of hunter you are.
Yeah.
Well, what were you going to say just now, Guy? You had something that was coming out, man.
Well, because you keep saying it's your competitive mindset or that competitor, and I disagree with it being a competition, right? And I would say that there's a drive there, definitely, right? And and maybe it's just the way I'm taking it, but it's just you're driven to succeed with that mission at hand, right? It's a drive, right? That's going to make Joe outrun these guys, and then have them chasing up the mountain. You're driven to succeed. You're driven to arrow that animal. And I think in my head, at least, and hearing that is where I see the difference, right? It's not a competition with Chav or Gil or Luis or Manano.
No,
it's
absolutely not.
Just absolutely driven, mission driven. It's just you're not gonna fail yourself, right? You've set the expectation for yourself.
No, I think that competition has nothing to do with the people around me, bro.
Right. It's yourself.
It has to do with that dude inside me,
Exactly.
and that critter out there, and all of the forces that are trying to stop me from being successful. It's just that refuse to lose type attitude,
right?
And it just
and I dig it. I can hunt with that. I was coached that way most of my life. I'm a hard-nosed kind of dude, and look, I'm my own worst critic. At the end of the day, man, do I want to look, man, I love to eat. My family loves to eat elk meat. They don't want me coming home without one. So is it important for me to harvest it doesn't matter to me, Joe. It doesn't matter if it's a cow or a bull. I promise you, my elk tag will say either sex. I'm telling you right now, don't let one get in the sights because it's getting the missile.
The meat is accepted. The antlers and the trophy may not.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for clearing that up there, Luis. That's right. Man. My wife's like, look, 41 mounts in this house is enough. We're not having any more. You're going to have to find a place for it to hang. Thankfully, I got a really cool bow shop that lets me.
And I know you've always had a great perspective out there. I think when Chav
that's an overstatement right there,
kind of thing, man. So
I was about to say something similar to Chav because my father, he made sure that my expectations were really low, and it's not about killing an animal.
He made sure your expectations were really low.
No, about
figures.
No, about killing an animal. I mean, it's not being success. I mean, you have to kill an animal to be a success. It's just you have to feel successful if you go out and be happy in the woods. Right. So if you kill an animal, it'll be 5 or 10% of the hunt. But the 90% of the hunt is sharing and the camp and all the And for me, to be success, first of all, is to have the opportunity to go with you to the elk camp. Mm-hmm. And to fill my tag, it's 20% for me. Yeah. So that's my general thought on this. Yeah, of course, I want to.
We've gone to elk camp without a tag in our pocket.
Yeah, of course. But if I have the opportunity to draw my bow, awesome. If not, I'll be happy going with you.
Feeling Budulakis fills up.
Yeah, that's and I was about to say that when Guy mentioned it about the competition to Joe. Joe is not a competitor. He he loves the virulacas. I mean, it's something that drives him nuts.
He's a freaking adrenaline junkie.
Yeah,
well, I don't want nobody to take it wrong. I wouldn't, dicing on Joe.
No, it's not. It's
and
not.
I believe you're right, Guy.
I think you were redefining the situation.
Yeah, it's
beautiful to have these opinions.
Internal competition. I mean, it's
absolutely, man. I mean, I call it the unicycle mentality, man. I mean, because my stepdad one time brought home a unicycle. We were 6 kids in our family, and he brought home this unicycle that somebody had given to him, and he showed it to us, and he's like, "This is a unicycle." He says, "I'll probably be taking it back in 2 weeks because you guys will mess with it, and then you're done with it." And just his whole thing of saying that it was something that we couldn't do.
Yeah.
It just like drove me, and I mean, I had to conquer it, man. It was just it's always been that way in my life, man. It's
the drive.
It's that drive, man.
It is the drive. It's the drive to when my first elk hunt, I got up there 325, 30 pounds, man. I mean, I had no business being in the woods, but Carl Gamage was gracious enough to give me my first elk hunt. And when I got there, he was like, "Oh my God, I got to tote this fat ass all around this mountain. This is not going to end well for him." Right. And look, one thing he knew is that, hey, Fat Boy could shoot, no doubt. Right. But I'm going to have to get him up and down out of these hills. And it's uphill every way you leave that dadgum camp, man. I mean, it's uphill coming there and going back. Right. So there's no freaking air up there. All for us flatlanders, somebody sucked it all up when we get there, because I mean, it takes 3 days to freaking figure out how to get some oxygen in your lungs. When they freaking gave me that elk hunt, it changed something inside me mentally. I was driven like there was no tomorrow. First of all, I am a very competitive dude, right? Guys are coming in talking about all these experiences, and I'm like, how in the hell could y'all even enjoy this experience? I was about to die. I'm talking like I thought several times I was going to die out there on that mountain, right? But I knew it was such a surreal, unbelievably beautiful moment. I didn't even give a damn if I died or not, because that was a cool place to die anyway, right? So I was going to get better at this. And it was yours truly, Joe Giglia, WW.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Big O, could you quote Mr. Carl when you call him in the phone and say, "Hey, Mr. Carl, I just want to hunt elk"?
How would you say?
Yeah, exactly. I said, "Hey, man," I said, I heard you guys have an elk hunting operation up there. And I said, "I want a real bow hunt to hunt elk." He goes, "Hell, you say?" I said, I couldn't believe this cat, man. Carl Gamage he's really the reason ElkBros exist, right? It put us all together. Make a long story short, that first year I was not successful. I did loose an arrow, and I wounded a bull. They actually found him. About 6 weeks later. He was a really big bull, like a 342, man. He was a giant bull. But everything I learned about bow hunting ran down the crack of my butt when that bull stepped out at 19 yards and I shot him with a 40-yard pin. So
which pin?
Yeah, all of them.
Go ahead, Gilbert.
I had never seen anything like that. So for me, the hunt, and I signed my name on the wall of that cabin, Gilbert Ornelas, the year I was there, and it has a quote in it. It's not about the harvest. It's all about the hunt. And I've been that way my whole life, man. I grew up in a hunting family.
Me too.
And I lived to be in the journey. I lived to have that journey, to go in the woods or go on the lake or whatever, and see that sunrise in the morning. And then whether I catch a fish or I kill an animal, I've gotten to go out into God's great outdoors and enjoy that, usually with a family member. And yeah, I'm calling my Elk Brothers family members because that's what they are to me, man. And I get to enjoy that with a family member and get out there and test myself against the elements, against the animals, against everything that's against you while you're out there putting this thing together. That's a personal success for me, to be able to enjoy that. And
when I met you, dude, you were on a CPAP, you were on medications, you were about you say 3 1/4, probably like 330, 335 at the time. And I mean, it altered your life. And I tell you what, I'm gonna call out my mentor too. The guy that, the sensei over there that was talking about, it's all about the journey and this and that, right? I want you to know, man, you think I'm a driven son of a buck? I learned it from that puppy over there. I mean, he sounds all nice and gentle. This dude in a race, in a distance race, could be on his last. I mean, it's like your energy level when you're there on a race, man. It's just you. Well, Guy, you've been out there. I see pictures of you running up the mountain and stuff, right?
Yes, sir.
You know what that feels like when that voice is on your shoulder and it's telling you you're not going to be able to do it. Let me tell you what, that dude right there would have guys come up and challenge him, and they should have gone by him. He will friggin' cough up blood before he lets people pass him. I kid you not. He will cough up blood before he lets that happen. He is such a driven individual, and he looks all nice and sweet over there, man, telling that stuff, and I know Chav understands. I mean,
he taps on the force. The force is strong with him.
He is the force is strong with that one.
And it's like I've listened to Guy, dude.
He won't tell you that, but he is.
And I've listened to you, man, and I've watched your thing, like when you had your wife in the mountains last year, and when you guys were picking the hardest spot to go. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say you're the brightest puppy in the woods, man. I mean,
that's a fact, brother. I'll never argue that, but that's what I say, right? Is I'm going to leap before I look, right? And that's part of it. But what you were just saying about Chav there, right? And it goes back to everything we were saying, right? Even with, between expectations and success, temper your expectations as in terms of the animal, but in terms of success and expectations for yourself, right? It has to be lofty, right? And your expectation for yourself in the woods is that you are going to grind it out, be that grinder, right? And you are going to push yourself as far as you can possibly push yourself to where you're, folks don't do it. And I don't want you on the mountain blaming me, spitting up that air quote blood, right? And that is going to define your level of success. And it's going to change your mindset in terms of what success is in terms of relationship with the animal or the notch tag. Yeah. You gotta look at it like that.
Yeah.
You're tapping onto something that I wanted to chime in on, because I actually talked about this on your podcast. On the reflection sections. And when you're talking about that drive is basically what's pushing you every day in and out to give it all, to give all that everything in your toolbox to go out there and try to accomplish whichever goal you've set for yourself. Now, the importance of that is that at the end is, and I say it again on that podcast, is at the end of the hunt, no regrets.
That's it.
And the no regret mentality is that that your drive has made you give it all, everything you could, and then you're going back and you're saying, okay, yes, my hunt was a success because I know I gave it all. I learned, and it was epic, and I had great memories, and I know that I gave it everything I could give it. Now, have I learned a lot? And are there things that I can improve upon on the next hunt? Absolutely. But I know for a fact that I gave it all. What makes you do that is exactly what you're talking about, is that drive.
I think people have to allow themselves to have an incredible hunt experience and it still be okay to feel like you're unfinished.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because look, and I say this all the time, it's just like they say in basketball, man. If the score wasn't important, there wouldn't be a scoreboard, right?
Exactly. It wouldn't keep score
if filling a tag wasn't important on a hunt,
why have a tag? Yeah.
Why have a tag, man?
If I would have harvested an elk the very first hunt I went with you, I would have not had the drive to continue to grind on for the next 3 years to learn and improve upon all my weaknesses to actually get to accomplish that goal.
And that's where we're a little different. I would have.
Grinders tuning in, thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Podcast. Our goal is to share our knowledge and help you flatten that learning curve so that you too can have some of the very same incredible experiences that have given all of us here at ElkBros a lifetime of memories. If you like what you hear or see, you can get all of this information plus so much more from our Base Camp Elk Hunting Training Camp, the first in a series of online courses from our Blue Collar Elk Academy. Our Base Camp Training Camp allows me to use my coaching style and share almost 40 years of elk hunting experiences successfully hunting elk on public lands, as well as over 20 years guiding hunters of all ages and experience levels. This course will be like nothing you have ever experienced in concept and structure, using success-based coaching techniques that will elevate your confidence and skill sets. Our camp will prepare you specifically from that final moment most in your control, those final minutes or seconds the elk is in front of you, backwards through each step and level, allowing you to see, visualize, understand, and relate every coaching point to what lies ahead, the next step, the next thought process, the next success. Because y'all, you've already been there. You know what it looks like. By tapping my 30 years of teaching and coaching experience, our camps are developed considering multiple learning modes with text, visuals, audio, as well as video. And Base Camp will benefit those new to elk hunting all the way to the 10 to 15 year vet. So if you are looking for that one thing to help you fill that tag this year, invest in the most important piece of equipment there is, you and your elk hunting knowledge. You can find the Blue Collar Elk Hunting Academy and the Base Camp Training Camp at ElkBros.com. That's ElkBros.com. Keep dreaming of the screaming, believing in achieving, and most of all, keep grinding.
This was something that struck a nerve in me that if I would have been successful or not, man, I'm coming back. I told Carl Gamage that, look, if it hair lips the governor, son, I will be here every freaking year that I can afford to, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that happens. It is a competition of my will, right? Every year to get better. And have my goals changed? Absolutely. Every time I step in the woods, I feel like I can punch that tag, whether it be with a cow or a bull. And look, it's because of the mentors I've had, Guy. You know, it's because I've hunted with one of the best elk collars in the country.
That's true.
Who's helped me become a good elk collar myself, right? The coolest thing in the world was when I started hunting with Chav. Joe gave me the Chav, right? That's his brother, man. That's his hunting partner. He sacrificed his hunting partner so that I could have another mentor in my life and help me understand how to speak the language. The coolest day in my life, successful. I'd already killed a bull, and I'm telling you, it would have never mattered to me if I'd have killed that bull or not. But was the first day I ever called an elk in for another hunter. And that was for Leroy Chavez, man. I mean, Leroy Chavez, you know, we call him Chav. He guided me through one of the most grueling freaking hikes we've ever pulled off, man. And then to a coup de grace of having two herds come together and him getting a shot at a really beautiful bull. And at the end of the day, that's a success, right? That's a success for me as a hunter, is a success for Chav. Yes. And then it was the most unbelievable journey to get down off of that mountain. It was like the mountain never stopped. It was 1.8 miles for 5 miles straight down, man. It was horrible getting down off of that mountain. After we climbed all the way to the top, tracking that bull, it was a crazy day, but that's a success. So guys your successes are gonna move as your hunting.
It's a moving target for sure.
Yeah, your hunting experiences as you experience in your hunting game gets better and everything else, those goals are going to change. You know, for Joe, it'll always be 100% punching that tag, right? And for me, I'm getting more and more the feeling of that same way because it's gotten so much easier for me. You know, you know as well as I do, once it happens the first time, it gets easier, brother.
Yeah, you know what's funny with that is, you know, so for me, I'm playing a fool's game, right? In anyone's eyes. I went out my first season. This is coming up. This year will be my 4th year elk hunting. Yeah. And out my first season in Wyoming, arrowed a bull. That bull, he took off on us. It was a good shot. He ended up dying. But by the time we got to that bull, he was stripped down. Somebody found him before me.
Sure.
Now I've had opportunities. But I set an expectation for myself, right? That bull was a beautiful 5. And my expectation is nothing below that bull, right? So I've let things go. I'm okay with it, right? And last year when I was up with my wife and we came back and I kept wondering, like, was that the right call? Like I could have arrowed a cow. I could have, I had an opportunity. And then when me and the fellas were there, I had opportunities on rags and I passed, right? Because for me, my expectation of what I want to do and my success was set 3 years prior, and I'm okay with walking away from it, right?
Fantastic, brother. I was the same way.
And there's nothing wrong with having a lofty goal and saying I want a 380 bull as my first bull, or going after a spike tag.
There's nothing wrong with it as long as you enjoy the hunt.
Absolutely.
Look, very quickly on my very first hunt with Joe and Beto and Chav, I realized how difficult it was to actually bow hunt an elk in public land. Mm-hmm. So my expectations completely changed from, hey, I want a trophy bull to I want any elk.
Any bull.
Any elk, in general. So, as the conversation started to progress, as we showed up at camp, I was like, I'll shoot anything. Yeah. I'll shoot any elk that is out there. But again, and that's a moving target because now I understood that any elk in a public land with a bow, it was an incredible accomplishment.
It's a trophy.
Incredible accomplishment. So, and that had been the mentality since then up until now, and it continues to be the case. But again, it depends. If you go to a paid hunt in a private ranch where they have different size bulls and different price tags for each one of them, that changes. Your expectations are going to be different based on what you paid and how much you want to pay for something like that. Sure. So again, it just depends of what, your expectations are.
Yeah, Joe, you guide. God, do you guide as well?
No.
Okay, so Joe guides. So he's in that realm, and myself too. We guide a lot of different hunts, and Joe's in that realm when guys come to a private ranch and they pay X amount of dollars. They have an expectation as well, right? And our job is to put them on a bull of that expectation, right? And we absolutely hunt in the areas that are target-rich environments, right? And Joe gets to hunt on one of the most beautiful ranches in the country, myself as well, right? They're different style of hunting than what we do on do-it-yourself, public land stuff. So it's just different. But every guy that walks into that camp has a measure of success in his mind, And I think as guys that are just starting out, the most important thing, and Guy touched on it, is you setting and managing those expectations for yourself and understanding Guy said it best. What kind of hunter are you? What kind of hunter are you looking for?
Well, and those guys that I take out there, they're no different than Guy, because
exactly.
They've already said, look, and I have no problem with this, man. I don't have the luxury of a lot of selection because I get 2, 3, 4 days that I got to make it happen so I can go to work and make it happen for everybody else. So I've just got to get something down. But when you decide that you're going to take that challenge of a mature animal, that's a heck. Then it's about the hunt, and that's what's so cool is when I have those guys. When I have somebody like Guy, like if we were partnered up, and Guy said, "Joe, man, it's going to be a 5 or above," man, it's like, heck yeah, let's hunt. I mean, we're hunting now, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
we know what we're doing.
Even though it's all a hunt, he's added another element to it. We're going beyond just hunting. We're going on. We got to hunt for something particular. So you're making it that much. You're making the odds that much more difficult. You're really having to go that extra, step further, man, like that. So
for sure, it drove Carl Gamage and RC Knox absolutely bonkers for me to draw back on a raghorn and let him walk at 35 yards. They're like, oh my God. We had to put so much work in, and I get where they're coming from. They had to put a crap ton of work for me to get in front of one of those suckers, man. It wasn't like first day deals, 3 or 4 days of hauling my fat ass up around that mountain. And look, they're like, man, we need this guy to seal the deal, or they don't feel like it's been successful. And that's when I sat them all down and went, fellas, y'all don't understand, man. It ain't about just killing any elk. I mean, I can do that. I'm already, not a problem. It's about killing the bull that I want to.
Yes, sir.
Joe is shaking his head now. You can't. Yeah, not any elk.
I mean,
couldn't think straight.
Now, for me, it's about Joe. For me, it's about killing a elk. I want to eat elk meat, so my whole thing has changed. I've gotten some really good bulls under my belt, and I could care less if he's 390, 400. Now listen, y'all give me around a 390 or 400, he's in serious danger, because I am going to go into that mode of going ahead and getting after his tail end. But don't let a cow walk in front of me at 30 yards while I'm doing it, because she's going to
spill the missile.
So all right. I do not believe you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna call you out. Right?
Oh, come on.
Oh, good. First time ever. First time ever.
Yeah, that's right.
Has a 390 bull over there, and a cow elk walks out, and he's saying he's going to shoot the cow and forget about that.
I did it. I did it with Carl Gamage in front of me. We had a big 6x6 coming down the mountain. He's coming. Cow walks out at 30 yards down below me. I smoked that cow.
I tell you what, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I had a cow elk right in front of me.
So, guy, you miss the world. Oh man.
No, I made that happen. Now listen, I will tell you. I drew on a cow. The morning I killed that big bull, I drew on a cow.
Yes, sir.
And drew on her at 12 yards.
At 12 yards.
Dead as a hammer. And I look up and this bull comes strolling in, bugling. Sound like Tyrannosaurus Rex with this giant rack on his head, man. Here he comes waddling in, and everything I thought about that cow went. I will say, I had a moment of.
For the very first time, Joe said you're lying.
Because he's hearkening back to that story, I guarantee you.
Oh, look, I had the same thing. I had the same thing happen to me.
That story is after his story about where he shot the cow and that bull was down the hill, right? Yeah. That bull was still down the hill a little way and that cow came up. Yeah, he did kill that cow, but this one with Chow, he had a cow at freaking 12 yards and he backed off and it's like,
wow, dude, that bull comes strolling in there like he owned the whole country, man. I mean, he was going to walk in at 70 yards of me, man, broadside and all sullied and got his cows around him, man. He was the straight up monarch, dude. I mean, what an unbelievable challenge, and I was not going to.
Guy, you have a bull elk at 70 yards, nothing in the way. You would do
shooting it? I'm shooting it.
Absolutely.
I'm shooting it.
Yeah. And why is that, bud?
I spend a lot of time behind the string. I am confident with my equipment. I'm confident with my ability. Yeah, it's a shot that I know I can take. I'm taking it.
Yeah, that bull scored 340 something and 346, I believe. And, it's the largest bull I've ever taken in my life. He might as well have been 366. He looked all gigantic, and he was a big-bodied, huge-body bull. And he walked in, and what they're saying is, I did pass on the cow because I had her dead to rights at 12 yards. Drew the bow, was going to kill her. Drew the bow, cow walks in there, 12 yards.
I would have loved to hear that
And
thought.
I looked up, guy, and this giant bull just comes strolling in, bugling his head off. Sound like Tyrannosaurus Rex coming in there, and he kind of stumbled forward and kind of caught his balance. And I knew, because I'd ranged the top of that hill, that it was at like 71 yards. He was actually right at 70. And he stopped, and when he stumbled, he turned quartering just a slight bit. And I'm like, and he's looking at his cows in another direction. And I redraw, and the little red dot meets the other little red dot. Poof, sent the missile, and he went 12 feet, brother. That was it. Boom. It was crazy how that
Send
day.
the missile.
Yeah, we sent the missile downrange, and it was.
All right, guys, man. I want to thank everybody, man, for that was just awesome, man. And I hope all of our listeners, you heard a lot of viewpoints, and I think if you boil it down, if you could paraphrase, Guy, what we just went through, what would you have just pulled from that conversation?
It is, and you are what you make it.
Good.
I mean, in a nutshell, right? The hunt, the type of hunter you are, the level of expectation, the goals, all that. You're in control of 110% of it. So you wanna get out of it. You're going to get out. Cliche as all heck, but whatever you put in.
Yeah, and 100%, we're here to help those hunters, and we're not lying about what we're telling you. Yeah, are we on a social media post? Absolutely. Do we have a podcast? Sure. But our podcast is to help you guys. So go listen to the Western Contours podcast, and absolutely go listen to the ElkBros podcast, and put yourself through the ElkBros base camp, and it will help you manage those expectations that are coming up, Joe.
You say that, and I hope that's true, because one thing that we talk about is success, and that's what Guy is saying. It's a personal experience, and it's like any team. Any team is a reflection of their coach, right?
100%.
They're a reflection of their coach, a coach's personality. Now, everybody on your team has different personalities, different roles, and everything, but it's a reflection of that. There's just something that kind of flows through. And I hope all of those people, all you guys and gals that are taking our base camp, and I'm extremely proud of that, man.
You should be.
Should be.
It's the stuff that we want to talk about in there about responsibility and about ethics and the way that we cover things to try to make sure that and ensure that you make a responsible kill, that you put that animal down, that you're going to be able to find that animal. But again, this is all a personal experience. And so a lot of that, my feelings, my drive, all of that kind of goes in there. And as your coach, understand something. I want you to understand all of the separate levels of goals. I want you to understand all the separate levels of successes. I want you to understand the journey that Guy is talking about and how personal it is to each and every one of us. But for me as a coach, understand that if you take that course, my goal, the reason that you are coming and paying for that is for me to try to teach you not only about all of those internal struggles, all about all those mental endurance and all of these different things, but my goal is to get you so you seal the deal, so that you punch a tag. And for me to feel successful as a coach, it's not, look, whenever we took kids to a championship, we never talked about winning a championship. We always talked about competing with the love, competing hard, being driven and enjoying that atmosphere. And that's the same thing that we're telling y'all right now and the same thing I'm telling you. And if you do that, if you go out and you work at being driven, if you develop your skill set, just like I would any team in preparing them to give them all the tools to be successful out there, then the success will take care of itself. And don't ever hide from the fact. You hear us say things that guy's a real killer, she's a real killer. You know, sometimes there's people that hunt and there's people that go out and they just kill. And we're not meaning that in a negative way at all.
Yeah.
You know, it is.
Yeah, I think it's semantics, Joe, from, kill to harvest to whatever, right?
So
I think it's important for people to understand that for you to understand what kind of hunter you are, you're not going to realize that before you start going out there hunting. It may take a few years in order for you to understand, and you have to make your experience your own. And I agree with you, what you're saying. You're going to be a reflection a lot of, where your mentorship comes from, but then make it your own. Because at the end of the day, it's about your experience, about your journey, and it's going to take a while for you to really figure out what kind of hunter you are.
After you get done with our course, if you go out there and you feel great about what happened, then boom. Right? I've scored right there. If you inside your heart are fulfilled, now you can feel like you're not finished, like there's more you want to accomplish. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you feel good inside, like you have had a successful season, then I've done my job.
Yeah, and if you don't, then try to understand why, and then continue to grow in that aspect.
Got to be honest with yourself. Yeah, and I'm going to shameless plug right now, right? And I'm going to shameless plug the base camp. So when Joe was coming up with that, he and I talked, and he shot me the version that was in the works. And as I progressed through that, and that there is so much value. And I'm not saying that, I'll say that on any platform. There is so much value in that base camp platform. If you take the time, when you walk in the woods and you have that, put the notes in your phone, right? As often as we're on the phone, put the notes in there. You will absolutely walk away from the elk woods with the level of success that we're talking about, and those expectations and where you set yourself. You can't go wrong with that. And man, I appreciate going through that, but the way that you guys put it together is phenomenal.
It really is. And Tim Cordova, our guy who let us off this evening, he's the one. I mean, he said it himself, man. He feels like he's got bigger armor on him because of what he's gone through. I can't say it enough. You guys prepare, work hard on your physical fitness. We all know round is a shape, but you got to get in shape and, put your time in behind the bowstring. Guy said, he puts a credible amount of time behind his bowstring. We
and
all do.
His confidence right there.
Yeah, it builds your confidence, and then go out in the elk woods, man. And like Guy said, man, just he's a kind of run out there with his hair on fire kind of guy and take what it comes to him. So I'm a lot that way too, man. I run through life with my hair on fire at 90 miles an hour, and we just kind of try to keep the damage control to a minimum, but it's cool to have this platform, be able to talk with Guy and gain such a great perspective of what he believes. In all reality, he's a juvenile elk hunter himself at 4 years, going out in the elk woods. So cool to get his perspective and the Mafia's perspective. Always amazing to have the Ninja talk to us about elk hunting for sure. And of course, the Mafia is gaining more and more notoriety as they put out stuff even in their own podcast, Guy. These guys are such incredible people and incredible men and hunters that we have such a cool, diverse elk camp, and then to be able to have guys like you that help us with other ideas and coming on our show and helping us with your perspective. It's been fantastic.
Oh, we just wanted you with us, man. It's like being able to invite you in and pull up a chair, man. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did you tell the boys how that went down? When you text me and said, "What are you doing on Wednesday?"
Oh yeah. So I go, "What are you doing next week at 6:30?" And he goes, "I'm sitting in with the ElkBros, man."
That's cool. I was sitting there.
So before we get out of here, we got another little deep discussion here, man, in our ElkBros mailbox. So Gilbert, this is from Casey Yeats. I think that's how you say it, Yeats from Logan, Utah.
Yes.
Could you read that out for us, man?
You bet, brother. Kelsey Yeats from Logan, Utah writes, you guys talk about leaving the animal for at least 2 hours after a kill shot. I'm a huge animal lover and have always been aware of animal suffering. When I kill a big game animal, my first thought is he suffering? I want to put him out of his misery as soon as I possibly can so he doesn't have to suffer. My initial thoughts on leaving the animal for 2 hours is why allow him to suffer for any longer than they have to. Could you shed some more light on your reasoning behind the 2 hour rule? Maybe help me feel better about doing it next time I harvest an animal. I agree with you guys 100% on paying your respects after killing an animal. I always thank the animal, and this may sound kind of funny, but I pet him, and while the animal, I say a few words. I love that you guys preach respecting the animals, and that's huge to me.
Yeah. Guy,
That's
now,
a great question.
I'm not sure you do a lot of hunting. Now, he said something about you being young in the elk woods, but you are not young to hunting at all. You kind of like Manano there and an incredible archer. So you come across situations where, as far as
I'm sorry that he compared you to Manano, bro. He didn't mean that. I trust me, he didn't.
So what would you have to say to Casey there, bud?
I get it, right? I absolutely get it. And it is not a good feeling when that animal, takes off after that shot and you're going to have a blood trail on your hands. But it really is the best case scenario to set back, to exude some patience, right? And let that animal expire without jumping that animal, busting them out. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? My Wyoming deal, right? I didn't bust that bull after, but he took off. I never found that bull. That bull died. If someone, wouldn't have done what they did and I didn't find that animal, I just wasted that animal. That's the worst feeling in the world to me. So I would say, settling back and understanding that, just like the ElkBros say, right? Midline of the body, 3-4 behind the crease, let it go. You're going to get that pass through. It is a tough animal. It's going to drop. It's going to drop. And you got to understand if that shot's a little bit questionable, it's better to set back and know you're going to recover than, cause the suffering, if you will, and lose the animal.
Yeah, I'd like to even add to that, guy, Casey. We definitely, if you've not watched our podcast on shot placement, I don't know, Casey, if you're a rifle hunter or you're a bow hunter. So I'd like to know that. You can write us back in, let us know if you're a rifle hunter or a gun hunter, because they're two different scenarios. Guns kill with shock and damage from the bullet, shocking the animal, whereas a bow actually kills much more routinely and much more surgically, because we're piercing both lungs and the animal actually just can't breathe any longer and they expire really quick. If you watch my animal this year on video, he was dead within 13 seconds. I mean, stone graveyard dead, right? I've seen animals shot with a 30-06 and they miss one lung. They're alive for 2 hours. And if you jump them, you will never find them because they get such a big adrenaline rush. And these elk are such giant athletes that they have huge organs, a heart that's like a basketball or a volleyball, and lungs like a number 10 wash tub. I mean, and they, on one lung, they can go several miles without stopping. And in the country that they can go in, you can't. So it's really hard. So when we shoot a bull with a bow, my first rule of thumb, and it's with a deer or a bull or anything else, if I know I made a really good shot, I'm still going to wait that time, because I know if a lot of times when we see the shot, it's not exactly what we thought. The animals tend to pivot as deer drop or whatever. So what we thought was a really good shot and we hit a rib and it turned the arrow. it could turn into more of a liver shot than it was a lung shot. So it's really important, number one, when you go find your arrow, to try to determine what kind of hit we have, right? Do we got a double lung hit? Do we got a heart shot? Is it muscle blood? Does it smell like gut on the arrow? I mean, those things are all determining factors in how long we're going to wait after a kill shot. If we 10 ring or 12 ring that rascal and we know, bulls, died within sight of us, well, yeah, we're not going to wait 2 hours. But when we do our job, you ain't got to wait 2 hours at all, because you watching him fall in your sight. I made the bull I shot 2 years ago. I made Joe and them wait for 10, 15 minutes, and they didn't want to, because they saw him go down in less than 10 seconds, But I have jumped these unbelievable athletes, even with two lungs popped, and they can get up. I watched a bull shot 5 times with a muzzleloader in the shoulder, 5 times with a 50 caliber muzzleloader, and that bull was not dead when we walked. I watched him get up all 5 times. So what we're talking about is leaving the animal an opportunity to pass away peacefully.
Yes, sir.
And if you've ever watched one pass after they've been double lunged, or right where we tell you to shoot them, it's as peaceful as going to sleep. I mean, they're not bellowing and all kinds of stuff. I mean, they pass away. It's very peaceful. And the reason why we wait our time, especially if we think it's a marginal shot, is so we don't get them up and create an opportunity for them to escape where we never find them.
Yeah. Sometimes
just because you wait, and it's not always 2 hours. Again, it could be 4 hours. It could be 6 hours that we wait.
Depending on the shot. That's right, Joe.
On the shot. I mean, on what you see on that. Yeah. And so it's not, I mean, that's kind of Gilbert's general rule. Generally, if I see a double lung pass through and I got bubbles in the blood, I know half hour, 45 minutes. Yeah. I can start doing the tracking job on there if my arrows pass through. And now if I get some curved back, if I smell paunch on an arrow, that I've got a little bit of one, I might be waiting now 24 hours for that. Right. Because again, it's like Gilbert said, look, the reason you feel the way you do, and that means you're worth your salt, because you care about, and we care about.
And we do too.
Yeah. People don't understand that relationship, man. But if you were to get to know hunters, they so care about the animals that we're working to preserve and to ensure that we have these critters here for our kids and our kids' kids. And
that's right.
When you respect an animal that much, then sometimes you have to respect them enough to let them lay. Because like Gilbert says, you got to let that animal go peacefully. Whereas if you go in there thinking that, well, I'm going to put that animal down right away so it doesn't suffer, and you jump and you get that adrenaline flowing, now you have just turned that situation from something that you would have found an animal down and harvested it to an animal that's now going to run. It's going to suffer from that running to a point of that adrenaline. It's like a drug in them. And there's a good chance now that you're not even going to recover that animal. So you got to respect the animal and the situation enough to be smart enough to back out. And now, look, if I'm in a situation where I see an animal that is standing, that is hanging down there, and I get a chance to put a second arrow.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, most definitely. Or if I see an animal that's there and I realize I can stalk in and finish it and put it down sooner, heck yes, I'm doing it. There is not a hunter that does not want that. But if you're in a situation where you don't see that animal, where they're bedded and now they have the drop on you, they're going to see and hear you coming. All you're going to do is make a situation bad when you
worse.
Absolutely.
There are some opportunities in which they might not even know what happened to them.
Absolutely.
And so they may feel sick and they may lay down to kind of try to rest it out. And it's like, what just went on? What happened? And then again, that goes back to, that's probably more peaceful than actually that animal then realizing he's being hunted. And then now that adrenaline kicking in, that animal getting up and hurting and running away and being scared of being chased and all that, and making it completely worse, and you probably not recovering.
You know, none of us can understand this unless you've been in the situation. Like Gilbert, I know you've been shot. I've actually had something penetrate my chest before, and it interestingly enough, God has given us a gift in that when you have trauma that happens, a lot of times you do not even know that it's happened to you. Exactly. You know, if you couldn't visually see it, you know, you feel a pinch or something like that, and you look down and gave us a gift of shock, man. When you go into shock, and again, that animal can do that. It can go into shock. It cannot feel what's happening. It can die peacefully unless you jump that booger and you get that adrenaline going. And you know, there's one more thing I wanted to talk about with this, because you know, we talked earlier about how we don't put stuff on our social media or things like that. And here's one thing that I might be going down a rabbit hole. I might be shaking up a can of worms, but look, almost every animal in nature, unless it's taken by a hunter's weapon, hit by a car, hit by lightning, just about every animal out there is going to die a brutal death. And I'm not trying to scare or anything I'm trying to give you fact, because animals out there are killed by predators or they die from disease or starvation. Yeah. They're going to die, right? And it's going to be, most of them are going to die from a predator.
Yeah, and they're eaten alive.
And except for a cougar, you know, cats are pretty efficient. You know, they're pretty doggone efficient, but they can do it as well. I mean, you watch lions and how they do it. When an animal is not efficient in a kill, and most predators with large mammals are not efficient. Right. And what that means is they're going to get them, they're going to hamper that animal, and they are going to eat that animal alive. They're going to start from one end. They're going to start from the non-business end where they're not able to get hurt, and they're going to brutally take that animal down, right? So, you know, nature is not easy. It is not kind. And nature. And when we talk about us and being part of that formula, hunters are the most responsible, ethical killers out there of all of the predators. We are, you know, we are a predator, man. That's we're part of that scheme. And I just want, you know, I hear people, they talk about bears and, you know, the cute and cuddly, but if you have ever seen what a bear does to a calf elk or to a doe deer, or, you know, I have watched a bobcat. Bobcat jump on a deer, get on that neck and stay with that booger,
suffocating for an hour
or as long as it can till it puts it down, you know, and gets it in a position where it can feed, because it's about survival, man. It's about survival. So, you know, I'm not trying to throw anything out there to disturb anybody. I want facts out there, man. I want facts. And
you know, Joe, I grew up on a farm, so everything we grew or we raised, we ate, you know, and everything you guys in y'all's plushy Lexus cars that got plenty of that leather up under your ass. Well, guess what? A lot of cows had to die for that, right? And they weren't ethically taken. They were hammered in the head with a dadgum, you know, big shiv that punches them in the head, and that's how they die, you know. And then they're skinned, and all their skins used.
But it is a quick death. So
no doubt. But cows that live on the range that are beef cattle, when you get a cougar come out, guess what? They or coyotes or wolves or anything like that, those cows die brutal deaths before we can keep them safe, you know. So what we do in the woods as conservationists and as officers of the land, man, we try to do our level-headed best to get those animals to expire as quickly as we can, via gun or via bow. I've seen a lot of wounded, I got a lot, just like Joe, I've seen a lot of wounded animals with a gun. And the guys I hunt with, this crew right here, these guys are absolute assassins with a bow, and they will put animals down very quickly. And I think we can. Yeah, I think we've proven that. Our podcast, I saw one thing one time. My daughter shot her first bull, and again, this going back to what she asked why wait. We waited in almost 45 minutes, and she made a great shot on the bull. It was a little low, but the bull was still alive after 45 minutes. And when he stood up, she sent another arrow at him, and where she hit him lit me up like the 4th of July. And I try to shoot bulls, and just what we talk about. It's part of our podcast to go and look at where we talk about our shot placement. Man, that bull died in less than 15 seconds when she shot him the second time, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Blood flew out. I mean, it was amazing how fast the elk expired. It had nothing to do with the first shot. It had everything to do with the second shot, so that she got one lung and part of a big artery, and the bull was sick, but it could still really go. And when he stood up, he was in shock, Joe. And we got lucky he didn't run. And she was able to put another 40-yard shot on him and put him down. So,
and Guy, I know you're on here on this podcast where I just expressed, I stood on my pulpit there a little bit, and I don't represent you. So, I don't want you to feel like what I say is something that, if you have any feelings on that, feel free on that. But.
Yeah.
No, Joe, you know me, man. I'm not quiet if I feel like I don't need to be. I agree with what you guys are saying. And Gil just said something there, and this kind of goes back to that question, and us talking about shot placement and equipment. The best way that she can ensure that she's not in that situation is worry about those aspects of it. We're hunters, right? And it's the unfortunate truth that I don't care how much I shoot my bow. I don't care how much any of us shoot our weapons. We're going to have that situation, right? And we do everything we can in our power to alleviate and eliminate those. Yeah. But she has to know that if you're out in the woods or if you're in that blind, whatever your scenario is, you're going to have to expect the unfortunate to happen. So make sure you stay after it with that weapon to ensure it. Talk shot
and be prepared.
Placement.
Understand your shot progressions and what your blood trail looks like, from a dark red muscle blood type thing to real grainy stuff on your arrow or on the ground. That's usually a liver, which tells you how much longer you need to wait before you go and pursue your animal and find him where he's expired.
Show enough respect where you don't go, it'll be okay. Because I'm telling you what, man, if you have an arrow that passes through an animal, I don't care where it passes through. If you pass through that guts, that animal is going to go at a certain point. So you owe it to the animal to do your
ethical part.
Trying to find that animal, hunt that animal, recover that animal. So,
and Joe, this year you had a hunt, or was it last year? Last year you had a hunt, and you guys stayed on a bull for how long? 3 days?
Took me 3 days, and it was bittersweet.
Yeah.
And here's a great example, y'all. I mean, a perfect example.
I thought so.
My hunter at 40 yards, bull quartering away slightly, puts it in the pocket. And it took me 3 days to find that animal. And this hunter started doubting himself, thought that he had made a bad shot, said he should never be hunting. I mean, did all those things that we do as responsible people, beating ourselves up, right? And I stayed on that animal for 3 days, found it at 3 days later. The bittersweet part was the meat was no longer any good. But one thing that did happen was he got to see where he hit that animal. And he hit it right where he aimed it, but somehow that thing hit a rib or something, turned the arrow and went out through, missed the other lung and went out through the guts about 8 inches back on the other side. How that happened? Oh my gosh, I couldn't tell you. There's no way I could tell you other than flexibility of carbon and different things on entry could happen, man. I don't know, but
I was having that exact same conversation with Manano this past weekend. Every shot is a whole different world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I had the complete opposite happen this weekend. I shot at a hog, and when I looked at the shot and I looked at the video, I was like, man, I'm high and behind. And I don't like the way, where that arrow went in. I just don't like it. So I went down and I looked at the arrow. Man, the arrow had gray blood. It had some bubbles in the fletchings, and it didn't smell like gut. So I'm like, man, that looks like good blood. It looks like it's a good shot. So I was like, based on the arrow, I decided to go and wait an hour and a half. So I waited an hour and a half, and then I went and looked for that. I started tracking the hog, and man, that hog was 60 yards from where I shot it, laying cold dead. And then I started looking at the video over and over again. I started looking at the exit one. It turns out that hog, when he heard the shot, he kind of ducked and spin in a direction that actually went
in your favor.
It went in my favor, and actually, got the lung on the other side, and that's what kind of expired him. But again, I mean, it's just every shot is a complete different world.
That's why, and it all comes down to Casey. It all comes down to we try to do our best to respect the animal, man. Yeah,
shot placement
in all parts, and I mean, from our diligence of preparing ourselves and in taking the right type of shot, trying to not take a marginal shot, but you can do everything right and have things go wrong. So in that case, there's sometimes you got to make tough decisions, and I know that just from what I can see, you're on the right track, and I hope this helps you.
Great question. Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question.
Absolutely fantastic question. Guys, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe, rate, and review. You got to go to Apple Podcast or iTunes to review us, and you can check out more elk hunting content at ElkBros.com. And just a reminder, if any of our listeners would like their questions answered on our show, just send your question to info@ElkBros.com. That's info@ElkBros.com. Guy, we really want to thank you for joining us at Elk Camp tonight, brother. It's been a true honor to have you on our podcast, brother.
I appreciate you guys. Everything you're doing, I appreciate the time, man. This is like a kid in a candy store for me. I'm Rose, buddy. I actually got to say, it looks good with 6 of us up there. So.
Yeah. I like it.
Let me ask you, Guy, because we're going to, whether or not we do more of this or whether or not our guests want to do this, it wasn't all dependent on you having to be the person giving all the information the whole time. How did you feel about the format, bud?
I love it, man. And I've told you before, I love what you guys do, man. I like, I remember there was a question about the shout outs, right?
Yeah.
A while back. And I love everything about the show, man. It, that first, call it 20 minutes of the episodes is phenomenal for me, man. The laughs in it. And then just learning about, Norfolk, Virginia, and all these little
Podunk, USA.
Yeah. You know what? Let me, I had this actually, if it's okay, but so this is one of the things I found out about my city that in 1993, and Joe, you can cut this out if you don't want to use it, that the middle class city of 76,000 became identified with rampant promiscuity and familial dysfunction.
Leave it to God. Ain't no show right.
Thank God, Joe.
I didn't want to open with that, but I had to get it in there, buddy.
Thank God, Joe.
Joe, that's
you're gonna cut it.
That's gotta stay, man.
Oh yeah.
You see how quickly he turns red?
Yeah, he's red as like a tomato.
I'm naturally red, man. It's just how I roll, man.
That's straight. That is straight up.
I love what you guys are doing, man. I love the platform. It's a service part of it, right? And yeah, there's an aspect where there's some back end, but this is free stuff. This is free information, man, just out there in the universe for people to absorb and grow upon, man. There can be nothing wrong with that in my eyes.
Yeah.
God, we can't thank you enough again, man. I know, Chav, you got something to say as we part ways here?
Well, no, just thank you for being with us. You added a lot. And
hope it was added value, sir.
It was, and I'm sure you'll probably be invited anytime you want to. I'm sure.
I'll jump on whenever you guys want me on. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna quote the Bible. It says, Take your bow and your quiver full of arrows and go out into the open country to hunt some wild meat for me. Genesis 27:3.
I love that, Manano. Genesis 27:3.
7:3, yeah.
That's so awesome, man. Way to close out the show. With the Venezuelan mafia in the house, no doubt. Guy, we sure appreciate it, man. Like we say here in Texas, fellas, men, y'all kiss your wives. Wives, kiss your husbands. Hug your babies. Keep your broadheads short and your powder dry. And we'll see you next week right here on Blue Collar Elk Hunting.
Thanks, boys. Peace. I always wanted to say it. I got it.
Peace.
And for all of our grinders out there. Here's
Oh, yeah,
from our brother Tony Wintrip to close out the show, man. Later, everybody.
EW.
Saw my grandpa by the griddle, good old cast iron pan, making eggs and bacon, trying to wake up Cain again. They've been up all night drinking whiskey, celebrating a kill, packing meat on their backs in a canyon, coming out of the Willapa Hills. In a hurry, he fired up his pickup to unthaw his windshield. Said, I'll be back again to make dinner while I drive these roads again. I'm the elk camp chef, all that I've got left is a couple of bad knees and glasses and my old rifle I've kept since my old man used when he was 22. He had a nickname before he left. Now they passed it down to me. I'm the elk camp chef. The elk camp chef. They give me first dibs on the timber where I drive back and forth. And I've learned not to be a picky man. I've had my chance before. I've taken my share of mashers. And I got a few racks on the wall. But now I'm old and wiser. And what I love most of all is I'm the elk camp chef. All that I've got left is a couple of bad knees and glasses and this old rifle I've kept since my old man used when he was 22. He had a nickname before he left. Now he's passed it down to me. I'm the elk camp chef. The elk camp chef. Now I'm creeping up on my time to leave, and I've seen it all in front of me. How things change since I was a little boy. And I've learned to be a humble man, and I enjoy the life